All right. Drug cartels in the United States. Now, the goal of drug cartels, as far as their involvement in the US, is the goal is to make money. And they do it through drug trafficking. Drug cartels are not the drug dealers, meaning they're not the retailers, they're the wholesalers, meaning, they sell big quantities to whoever will buy them and sell them. They are not the ones selling on the streets, and they're not the ones interested in street gang warfare or anything like that. Their goal is making money by selling drugs wholesale. Why are they in the US? They are in the US because the US has a long history of being one of the biggest consumers in the world of illegal drugs and pay among the highest price for those illegal drugs. And so that's why, as long as people buy and pay high prices, and it's illegal, so that these people are the only ones selling it, they're gonna keep trying to find ways of selling it. All right, the history of drug cartels in the United States goes back to Colombia, where there were two big drug cartels, the Medellin cartel and the cartel of Cali, not associated in any way with California. These are two Colombian cartels. Both Pablo Escobar and Griselda Blanco were from the Medellin cartel. And this was in the 1970s and 80s. And at that time, Colombian drugs would not come through Central America and Mexico. They would come in through the Caribbean and into Florida, and then into the rest of the United States. And so here's a map showing how it'd go from Colombia straight north through the Caribbean into Florida. Pablo Escobar, again, Medellin cartel in Colombia. And he was the one that started moving from the shipping of marijuana to the shipping of, or drug trafficking of cocaine. Cocaine was much more profitable. Well, I'll get to that in a bit. I'll tell you the short version first, then I'll go more into it in a bit. It would cost them $1,500 to make a kilo of cocaine, and it would sell in the US for $50,000. So the markup is just ridiculous, the amount of money. Pablo Escobar, we know him primarily as a drug trafficker, but there were different sides to him. And in Medellin, especially early on, there were people who saw him as a Robin Hood type, someone who would take from the rich country of the US and give to the poor region of Medellin in Colombia. Because he did more for Medellin than the government or even the economy could do for Medellin. He gave lots of people work. He built churches, he built parks and playgrounds, and donated a lot of money for a lot of infrastructure for the community that the government and the economy were not able to do. He was so popular that he actually succeeded in getting elected to Colombian Congress. And so he became a politician. Though he didn't last long, because once he became a politician, he was outed by other Congress people as a drug trafficker, and so he had to step down from that. But it serves to show again how much popularity he had. Businessman, because drug cartels always need a way of laundering their money. And so they always have businesses to try to hide where the drug money comes from through these businesses. And obviously drug trafficker, no doubt. Now, Pablo Escobar was able to move from the importing of marijuana to the United States, which is bulky and has limitations because you need to grow it and you need big fields and there's growing seasons, etc. At least back then. This is before people grew it indoors with lamps and all that. But when they moved to cocaine was a lot more compact. And so you're able to fit more of it into, say, small airplanes that they use to cross the Caribbean Sea and get to Florida. And it had much higher profit margins. So, it was more compact and it would sell for more. And so hence that led to a lot of money being made. Pablo Escobar, let's see. He would spend $1 million a year just on the rubber bands for all his money. Pablo Escobar would buy houses just so that he can fill them from floor to ceiling with cash. Pablo Escobar would lose like $1 million a year just to the rats that would eat away at the bills. He would bury the money underground. Like he had so much cash, he didn't know where to put it. And so again, cocaine was very profitable. Now today we're seeing a new step in that direction, from going from the bulky marijuana to the more compact but still heavy cocaine. Now we're getting to synthetic drugs that are even much more compact and have even higher profit margins, things like meth and fentanyl, where just the amount that fits on a tip of a pencil can be an overdose. And so it's right now we're seeing another step in that evolution of more compact and more profitable. And all that also makes it easier to smuggle into the US because it's so small. Example of that, in 2023, 90% of drug seizures were at legal crossing points or interior vehicle points. All right, well, getting to that is that, a lot of times the media portrays drugs being smuggled into the US by, how do I put this, through illegal, crossing the border illegally, with like drug mules, people with backpacks and so forth. But the evidence shows that most of drugs actually come in through legal crossing points. And so that is, through the places through which everything else is coming into the US, everything we import. But, especially nowadays with, kind of a Amazon order online lifestyle where things are delivered in 2 days, the economy doesn't want to stop those vehicles that are bringing all these products to the US because it'll slow things down and slow the economy, and consumers are going to complain. So we just have a ton of products coming in, and that is where the evidence shows that that's where most drugs are coming in through. Not through illegal migration routes, not by illegal immigrants or refugees. They come in through legal ports of entry with all the other products that come in. With that said, with synthetic drugs, it does become more it does become easier to bring in large amounts of synthetic drugs. The amount that could fit in a backpack or anything else, any small thing, can be worth a lot. And so, but then again, through legal ports of entry, it's now easier for them to hide stuff, large value amount of stuff in a very compact space. So it's getting even harder for them to detect, to be able to catch this. Talked about Pablo Escobar. Now I'll talk about Griselda Blanco, also known as the cocaine godmother. She's Colombian. She was in the US, whereas Pablo Escobar was in Colombia. In 1975 in New York, she was being tried because she was caught with the largest amount of cocaine that anyone had ever been caught with. And again, because they're wholesaling, bringing large quantities and selling them to all the people who sold them on the streets. She fled New York and went to Florida. In Florida, she became responsible for what's remembered as the cocaine cowboy wars. She was making $80 million a month in the 1980s. And she was responsible for ordering over 200 murders. They're known as the cocaine cowboy wars because there was just an escalation of violence that the US hadn't seen in modern times, where they were having shootouts, like big shootouts in broad daylight, like at shopping malls or shopping center parking lots. And so, that's why they're remembered as the cocaine cowboy wars. So, they try to catch her there. So she moved to California. In California, she was caught in 1985. She was arrested, tried, sentenced, convicted, kept in jail from 1985 until 2004. In 2004, when she completed her sentence, she was deported to Colombia. And in 2012, she was assassinated, ironically, with one of the techniques that she had pioneered. And that was the, what do they call them? It was essentially like motorcycle drive-bys, where there's one person driving a motorcycle, another person hanging on to the driver of the motorcycle with like an automatic like Uzi or Mag-10, just spraying bullets at, whoever their target was. And that's how she was killed in 2012. All right, so how does Mexico come into this? Because today we associate it mostly with Mexico. A little bit of background, and then I get to that. Mexico, we learned about the Mexican Revolution, 1910 to 1920. One of the things that came from the Mexican Revolution was this PRI political party, the Partido Revolucionario Institucional, the Institutional Revolutionary Party. And even though Mexico got rid of re-elections so they wouldn't have another dictator, what they didn't do was make it so that there couldn't be one-party rule. And so since the 1930s, there hasn't been a repeat in a president, but one political party was in power from around 1930 till the year 2000. So for almost 70 years. The PRI started off as kind of leftist, then became more center-right. So at the center, leaning right towards the end here. During the PRI, there was a lot of peace in terms of drug violence. But there was also a lot of corruption where the drug cartels at that point, well, not at that point, but the drug cartels up to like the 1970s they were not that powerful, and they were focused on bringing in marijuana into the United States, which again, the things I mentioned was bulky, didn't make them all that much money. As the United States was succeeding in cracking down on drug trafficking through the Caribbean and into Florida, the cartel started switching to bringing the drugs in the 1980s through Central America and Mexico along the US-Mexico border. So at that point, the drug cartels in Mexico were growing in power because they were making more money smuggling cocaine than marijuana. And that money gave them the power to buy off police, military, politicians, judges, etc. So there was a lot of corruption, no doubt. In the year 2000, the Mexican people voted for a new political party for the first time in like 70 years. The name of that political party is the PAN, the National Action Party. This was a right-wing party. The name of the president was Vicente Fox. Fox was the president for 6 years. So in Mexico, presidents are elected for 6 years and can't be reelected, as opposed to the US where it's 4 years, but can be reelected once for an additional 4. And so yeah, he was from 2000 to 2006. There was a change in government, and the recollection of his administration is generally positive. People were happy with what he did. Oh, and by the way, we haven't heard from him much this time around. But during the first Trump administration, he was getting a lot of attention because he would go on YouTube and argue against Trump a lot and literally give him the middle finger and stuff. And so he got a lot of attention back then. In 2006, not surprisingly, the Mexican public voted for the return of the PAN with a new president, Felipe Calderón. He's the one who began the Mexican drug war, using the Mexican military to take out the drug cartels. And this led to a lot of death and chaos. The military is not trained to police. Yeah, there was a lot of fighting, obviously, between the cartels and the military. But there were a lot of civilians that were caught in the crossfire. Practically took out all the leadership of all the drug cartels, except for one. And so they made a lot of progress, but again, that only led to more chaos, because when they would take out the head of a drug cartel, there would be infighting within the cartel, and then the neighboring cartels would see them as weak and try to take over that area. It was just a chaotic mess. So that is when the Mexican public lost its enchantment with the PAN, and they felt like things were more dangerous than ever. So in 2012, they returned to the PRI. They elected Peña Nieto. He was president 2012 to 2018. He calmed things down. He tried to be more targeted about who he would attack. One of the people he attacked was the one leader that benefited from Calderón's drug war, because again, Felipe Calderón's drug war succeeded in taking out practically all the heads of all the cartels, except for one. That one was the Sinaloa cartel and El Chapo Guzman. During Peña Nieto, they focused on him. And that I'll kind of plug this in right now, because there's been a lot of talk again about, there's been moves made in direction that started with declaring drug cartels terrorist organizations to make it easier to be able to justify sending the US military to take out the drug cartels. But my job as a historian is to remind people that the Mexican military already went and took out all the leaders of the drug cartels, and that didn't put an end to this. And so just repeating history again isn't going to put an end to it either, in my opinion, and you don't have to agree. It's just about connecting the dots. In 2018, Mexico elected a president from a new political party, the Morena party. And right now, Morena stands for Movimiento de Regeneración Nacional, the Movement for National Regeneration. It was a new political party. It was a leftist party. It's the first time that Mexico has elected a leftist party. Well, since the PRI was leftist in the 1930s. And then it's been center right since the 1950s. And so, yeah, the name of the president they elected and that came into power in 2019 to 2024, AMLO, well, his name is Andrés Manuel López Obrador. This is kind of an acronym for each letter. So first name, middle name, and then two last names, López Obrador. And people are generally happy with him. So they voted again for Morena, where now the president is Sheinbaum, who just came in 2024 to 2030. And Sheinbaum is the first female president of Mexico. And yeah. Let's see. I mentioned Mexican military already took out all the heads. This Sinaloa cartel was the last one. They had already taken out Los Zetas. But I'll tell you a little bit about Los Zetas just because they stood out for a good while. This is kind of an older, this is from 2015. So 10-year-old map of what drug cartels look like. This is all completely reshifted again because they took out the leadership. El Chapo Guzman, again, the beneficiary of Mexico's drug war, although now they've removed him from there as well. In 2012, he was number 63 in Forbes magazine for the most powerful people in the world. And even though they try to focus on him, there were setbacks. He was arrested in 2014, but then he escaped the next year. Then he was arrested again in 2016, and then expatriated to the United States in 2017. And in the United States, he hasn't been able to escape from US prisons. He was convicted and sentenced with a life in prison in 2019. And so he's still in US Supermax prison in Colorado till today, since 2019. Just a little bit more here. So this is the Mexican military. These are drug cartel members. These are the weapons that they took from them. This is what $207 million cash looks like. And you can see how much of it is dollars and how much of it is Mexican pesos, where the money comes from people buying all these illegal drugs in the US. So best way to not have, drug cartel active in the US is don't buy drugs, illegal drugs. These here are members of the Sinaloa cartel. This is not police or military. This is one of the standard common practices that drug cartels would do. Now they do like everyone else, they post stuff on social media, and YouTube videos and stuff like that, but they used to make these big banners where they would put up messages. They would hang them from highway bridges, or put them up on town square walls and so forth. So here's an example. So this is a message from El Chapo that says, to the citizens of Nuevo Laredo. It says, to the citizens, we've started to clean up Nuevo Laredo of the Zetas, the name of another drug cartel. The Zetas, by the way, were a drug cartel that was created by members of the Mexican military. They basically, the drug cartels would hire out the Mexican military to do hits for them. And after doing it for a while, they decided to go into business on their own. And so these militarily trained people created their own drug cartel. Those are los Zetas, which is the Spanish pronunciation for the letter Z, like the Z's. All right, so we've started to clean up Nuevo Laredo of the Zetas, because we want this city to be free, and we want you to live in peace. We are drug traffickers. We do not mess, we don't bother honest people, hardworking people, or commerce. We don't want anyone to pay quotas to these people, and anyone who does will be considered a traitor for financing the Zetas. I'm going to show these dirty people how to work Sinaloa style, without kidnapping, without extortion, and without extortion. And in reference to you, number 40, I'm letting you know that you don't scare me. I know that you sent H to drop some heads on my territory, because you don't have the bees, nor the people to come and do it yourself. Sincerely, El Chapo. Y que no se te olvide que soy tu mero padre. Don't forget who's your daddy. Yeah. And so, it gives us a little bit of insight into kind of how he saw himself, and how they kind of have their own way of seeing themselves or portraying themselves as, being drug traffickers that aren't doing anything wrong. But, and I did mention that in the US, they're drug traffickers, not doing all these other things. But in Mexico, they do all those other things: kidnapping, extortion, all that. There's been a popularity in a kind of like a parallel to gangster rap in the US. They're called narco corridos. Then there's also trap corridos. So this is more, a little bit more modernized, more recent, more kind of Mexican American influenced a bit. All right.